G'day, here's another hints and tips video for the Fermzilla. It has not been empty since I filled it. I clean it and I use it again. I've been enjoying it immensely. It's so much easier to clean, and the pressure transfer and all that sort of thing I just love. But there's been a small minority that have been having leaking problems. And I've been seeing it in all the Facebook groups. And people think that it's widespread. I don't believe it's widespread because a lot of my friends have these and a lot of people have them that they don't have any issues with. And it's always the people that have the problems that speak up the loudest. Sometimes you have to remember, even though you know a lot about brewing and you might have been brewing a long time, sometimes I think you just have to remember it is a new piece of equipment you probably haven't used before. There is ways things work slightly differently. You might have used carb caps a lot of the time. But if you over tighten them on this certain device, they may leak, where they might not have when you were tightening onto another device. These things are a little bit different, but once you get to know it and how to use it properly, then everything should be fine. It was the same with my stainless steel, because I'm pointing at it because it's up there, stainless steel Mangroves Jack fermenter. I turned it up and I went, this is awesome, looks great. And then I went to use it and empty it, and that plastic tap it had on it. And I went, oh no, this is awful. I bought a stainless replacement. And then I got all worried about it. And then in the end, I figured out a little fitting for the tap, and I haven't replaced the tap at all. And I use it all the time. And I was going to send that back. I was going to ask for a refund. I was all cranky, but once I found out how to use it properly, then it worked. And I think it's the same with any system, and the same with this system here. At the end of the video, I'll show you this. They've actually put out a new seal for the people that asked for it. But we'll wait till the end to get to that. So I'll just briefly go through how I do it every time after cleaning and before I use it to check for leaks. I start at the bottom. I find that the hardest, even though it's really easy. And then I finish with the top, because I haven't had an issue with the top. I know people might not want to hear that, but I have not had one issue with the original top. It's been one of my favourite parts of it. Anyway, we'll get on with the video. So first you do it up by hand. Probably as tight as you can go by hand. I've left it a little loose just to demonstrate what can happen. So then I'll flip it over. I'll put some pressure on it. Today I'm using 12 psi, about what I'd ferment at. And you can see it's leaking. Now just give it a quick nudge up with the tool. Now don't go as hard as you can. Just a nudge. Hopefully that'll do it. Now, if it doesn't work, there's no point in over tightening it. You could be making things worse. So I'd suggest just giving it another go. Flip it over, undo the collection jar. Just make sure you haven't got any debris in there and the seal's seated right. It's nice and lubed, and try it again. And once you've got the bottom sealed, turn it over. Be aware there is places water catch and fluid catches or sanitizer if it has been leaking or you have had it splashing around, and when you turn it upside down it might run out of some of these holes, especially when you turn it up the other way. If you get sanitizer into these holes here, and it can make you think that there's a leak when there really isn't. I can see now that I'm fine. If you're under a fair bit of pressure and you're upside down like that and there's no fluid coming out, you haven't got a leak. I've seen a lot of people lately having issues with the lid leaking. I can say that I haven't had any issues with it leaking from the lid at all. The lid's one of my favourite things about it. I think it's a much better design than the Fermentosaurus in that respect. The Fermentosaurus had that seal, which for me, every time I went to dry hop or do something, the seal had come away from the lid and I'd have to reseat it, and it was a bit of a pain, where I don't have that issue with this. It's a simple lift up, pop the top off, do what I have to do, and simply screw that back on hand tight, and it's always worked for me. Where I have had issues with the lid leaking is the disconnects, and that's again from over tightening. I've mentioned it in my quick disconnect cleaning video, and there's just a simple seal in there, and if you over tighten them on that plastic, you can dislodge that seal, and you'll never get it sealed however tight you try and do it. So again, it's about being a little bit gentle with these, and I haven't got, well, you can see now mine aren't leaking now. There is places you can, if you've sucked bits of hop debris up. Again, you can have a look at my cleaning video on these, but you can get debris stuck in there and you might not even see it. It might be down where the seal is. I've had it in a keg too. It's not just these. And these fittings, these quick disconnects, it can happen anywhere. I've had it in a keg and it was the tiniest hair. It wasn't my hair. I think it was one of the kids' hair. It was so fine, and I had to put my glasses on to see it. And I could just see it sitting in there. And I got rid of that, cleaned it, and it worked perfectly again. But we're getting sidetracked. If you're having issues with these tightening and you can't get it right, as I said, go easy and it should be fine. They do have these plastic ones, which I've mentioned in other videos, and they don't have that issue. Of course, they're not as robust, being plastic, but they will work. So this batch, I'm going to give one a go. I'll do it right now. I'll swap this out for it, and we'll see how we go. Whenever you are trying to undo things, I find it much easier with the pressure out. I've seen people give advice, and even Kegland, to put pressure in to get things undone. And make sure it's low pressure when you do, because I think the only benefit is that it's more solid and easier to hold tight. Because if you put too much pressure on these seals and threads and things, it forces the thread against each other and makes it harder to undo. So yeah, just a little bit of pressure, and that makes sense because you can grab this easier. So I'll let the pressure out. The other reason to let the pressure out too is you don't want things shooting off out of your hand from the pressure when you undo things. I'm going to try and undo this. I'm just going to use the gas one. I'm going to leave the... See, I can undo that by hand. Let some more gas out. I can hear gas coming out. That's how tight I had to have it to seal. I can undo it by hand like that. So here's one of the plastic ones. I'm not sure about these. I guess you just do them hand tight as well. And we'll put some more pressure on. Put some pressure on. Should be enough. And we'll turn it upside down. So that's looking great. What I will do is I'll just leave it for 10 or 15 seconds or something, just in case there is a slight leak where it's sealed here and it takes a little while for this cap to fill up. Although under this pressure, if this had a leak, I'd say that would be leaking by now. Another way to see if it is leaking into that threaded part is we'll turn it back up the other way, and if any fluid runs out, then we'll know we've had a leak there. And I can't see any there. Nope. So that's tight. So that was just hand tight. That would do the job. So I'll leave that in for this next batch. There's another thing that keeps coming up in forums, and when people are leak testing, they'll have their star sand or water in there, they'll put some gas on it, then they'll put on their pressure gauge, and they'll go and they'll check it, you know, it might be 12 psi. They'll come back a few hours later and it'll be lower. If you've only gone down 1 or 2 psi, or 3 or 4 even, the water, exactly like when you're carbing a keg of beer, the water will absorb the CO2 and you'll lose pressure. It doesn't mean you have a leak. The best way to check for a leak is the way I just showed you. Flip it up and down, see if there's any fluid leaking out. The other thing that can happen, even if you don't use water, so you've got nothing in there and you just use gas, if I did it now, it's 28 degrees in the garage at the moment. If I come and check it in 6 hours and the temperature's gone down to 20 degrees or 17 degrees, you're going to lose pressure. So that's just another thing to keep in mind too. The best way really for me is to use water. Whether you use water on the inside or you fill it with pressure and you dip it in your bath or something, if that's the way you want to do it. Personally, I find using this Stellar sand much better because if it's not leaking now, as mine isn't, it's ready for brew day. All I've got to do at brew day is open the lid up, tip out the star sand and fill it up. And remember, this unit is still in development, and I did get a letter from Kegland the other day to ask me to test some things for them. And these are just slightly thicker seals. And these are for the lid. Now, as I said before, I haven't had any issues with the lid, and I sort of don't want to play with it. I'd rather just leave it how it is because it's working perfectly. But for the sake of the people that are having issues, and because Kegland sent them for me to test, let's give it a go. Bit hard to pick it up on camera, but it's to replace that seal there. I'm going to try and use something that's not too sharp because I don't want to damage it. This seal is working perfect for me. All right, and try not to get any of that toothpick left behind. So there's the difference there. It might be hard to see. It's only 0.5 millimeter apparently. Slightly bigger diameter. Sits in there nice and tight. Make sure your hands are clean. Food grade lubricant. Okay, that's in and lubed up. Now, they did mention, of course, that it's probably going to make it harder to put in and to take out, which could be a pain for some people. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, it is. There we go. No. Now that was harder to get in. It comes out okay. It's still seated in the right spot. Yep. There we go. It's in. Oh, so it comes out okay. Once the lube's in there, I think. Try again. That's in nice and tight. See, this is just to hold it in place. The seal should do the job. Again, there is no need at all to over tighten this top bit. Put some pressure in. Again, I'll use my phone so you can get a close-up. So that's it. Hopefully that helps somebody. I've not had an issue. Sometimes I think it just takes to walk away, come back, have a little think about it and try again. As you saw in my first cleaning and disassembly video, I left it overnight. I did get frustrated, and that was more with the initial valve setup. And I came back the next morning and I thought a bit clearer and sorted it out straight away. But if you do have issues, contact Kegland. I don't work for Kegland. I never have. I never worked for Keg King. I've never worked for any brew supplier or brew shop. I won't say I never will, because I need a job one day. But up to this moment, no, I don't work for any of them. This isn't a paid review. I do this for my own enjoyment and to help people out. Anyway, cheers. Thanks for watching. I hope that helps somebody. This is a Hornindal Quike Pale Ale. These t-shirts are available, the link below. I should be able to upload this video tonight, and I'm sure from the 11th of November to the 13th of November, it's 20% off everything on Spreadshirt. So if you've been waiting to buy a t-shirt, you can get this one. You can get a few other designs too. I don't set the sales. They're automatically done by the website, so I've just got to keep my eye out for when they put them on, and I'll try and let people know. Thanks to my patrons. Like, subscribe, press the bell, all that sort of stuff. Cheers. Here's a bonus bit for the end. Just a reminder, if you're new to pressure fermenting or if you're new to kegging, you should always keep spare seals. It doesn't matter if it's this pressure fermenter or a stainless one with 2-inch tri clamps or whatever. It doesn't matter. You can lose that seal, and if you haven't got a spare, you're stuffed. So I just remembered I'm about to change one on the post on one of my kegs. It's getting a bit leaky when I put the quick disconnect on and off. So I think it needs a new seal. I don't change mine as often as I should, but always have some on hand. Every time I think of it and I see them cheap or something, I always buy a kit. You don't usually need many of these big ones, but those little ones are very handy. It was the same with the Fermzilla. They actually come with extra seals. And then when I contacted Kegland and said, look, I'd really like to buy some extra ones. I accidentally sort of kinked one of the seals by over tightening it and caught in the thread when I first had it. So I used the replacement that was in the kit that they sent, and then as soon as I used that, I went, right, I need some more. So I contacted Kegland and got some. It's the same with your kegs, it's the same with your fermenters, it's the same with anything that takes a seal. Buy spares. Buy spares. If you lose, it could be midnight Saturday night, you're changing your kegs over, you break your little seal O-ring when you're putting your quick disconnect on, and then it's a colossal muck around trying to take one from somewhere else or find another one. Have spares on hand. Cheers.